This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last season saw Gaspers grab a perfect score in spite of a slew of new tracks on the schedule. And while this season contains a larger amount of high-speed circuits, it begins with the small and cramped Tsukuba. More well known for hot lapping than racing, this place will be tight confines, even for the tiny SRF. We'll see who can kick things off with a win as we get ready to watch round one of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, Tsukuba seems an unlikely track to be known on an international stage, but with its prominent use in modern racing games, it's gained quite a reputation.
And a good one too. Having great flow and a variety of different turns, this 12-corner track is great fun to drive, especially in the Spike Racer 4. In total boasting 3 hairpins, it might seem like a slow track at first, but you can't be much more wrong than that in the SRF. 1.27 miles or 2.05 km long, it's mostly used for drift events or club level races, so perfectly fitting for us here today. How perfectly fitting is that, if you ask? Ask yourself no longer as we take you on board a lap around the Tsukuba circuit in our GSRC lap cut.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Tsukuba. Turn 1 is really one of the most ideal places for an overtake. It's one of the fastest straights on the circuit into a decently heavy braking zone. But the understeer under acceleration means it's best to try to square off your exit. From there, you'll try to straighten out 3 and 4 while also lining yourself up for the braking into 5. There's a surprising amount of banking here, but just like the first hairpin, ideally you want to aim for a late apex. Quickly switch sides and give it a little lift to swing it through 7. This 90-degree turn can be taken faster than you'd think, so don't be afraid to really push it. The track drifts off to the left through 8 and 9, but you still want to hug the left side for the widest line into the final hairpin. Similarly to the second one, there's lots of camber. However, the main difference is that the radius opens up drastically on the exit. That means you can get back to the power much sooner than you'd expect. That'll be critically important with the run down the backstretch towards 12. Even with this being the longest straight on the track, you still don't hit top gear though. The final turn itself is incredibly deceptive. You want a very late entry or else you'll be forced to wait much longer to get back on the throttle. Hesitate to apply the gas and you'll be a sitting duck in a 1. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Tsukuba. There's a very quick lap around Tsukuba Speedway. And of course, this weekend is brought to you by the Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxers, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more about them at simstickers.co.uk. The Weekend Warriors have been sponsored by them for a little while now, and we're hugely appreciative of their support and help with this series. Definitely go show them some love when you get the opportunity. Let's take a look at last season's championship, though. The Spec 1s wound up heavily in favor of David Gaspers. Now, Daniel Sadro was incredibly consistent himself, but Gaspers essentially took what was effectively a perfect score, barring any sort of bonus points or penalty points. He finished in first in all of the races that weren't dropped. Jerry McAreevy, Elson, and Haycox round out the top 5, and Ian Haycox brings us well into the Spec 2 championship. Steph?
Yeah, and Ian Haycox obviously did win that one. What a surprise, I know. But it wasn't with little contention. Bob Kern actually only 25 points behind. He did put up a great fight throughout the season, but only came short in the last race there. Jeff Jacobson 50 points behind, so evenly spread the top three there at the very end. One United Kingdom, two United States, but back to the United Kingdom once again for Ed Doherty. Fourth place went to him, 57 points behind, only just managed to not get that third place at last step on the podium there. Adam Bradshaw already quite dropped there, 121 points behind Ian Haycox, rounding out the third UK driver in the top 5 of the Spec 2 class.
And not much has changed in terms of the race details. We are still running a 12-round season with 3 drop weeks, and it is still a 40-minute race, which means you can expect 1 pit stop. They also continue to ration those points, which means that the winner will always get 100, and the last place driver, no matter how many cars show up, always get 25. And they do have penalty points for each incidents that they accrue, which you can rack those up around here over the course of this race. They have a spare car waiting for them if they need it, and hopefully they won't need it too much. It's going to be pretty cramped, especially with the number of cars that they have competing today. Now, we hope you catch all the excitement here on the iRacing Esports Network each and every week. If you want to make sure that you catch it each and every week, all you got to do is subscribe. There should be a big red button that says subscribe. If you haven't done that yet, click that. You won't miss a moment here on the Weekend Warriors. Right now, and qualifying provisional pole belongs to Miroslav Juracek, and Daniel Sadro is following him close behind. With it being a very short lap, no surprises here, Steph. It is only 2/100ths of a second between the first two.
Yeah, and taking this further down, the top 22 drivers are within a second of first place of Miroslav Juracek, who did put in a fast lap time now. Actually, no, never mind. That was slower. But no, the top 22 drivers are within a second of Miroslav Juracek, which not only speaks for the shortness of this track, but also how tight this field is as always.
Expect lap traffic certainly going to play a part in this race because of that, as we watch James DeBoer sitting in 5th, currently working his way around. Actually had the pleasure of racing against James as well as Miroslav earlier this week. Just yesterday managed to sneak a race in, and of course they both outpaced me by a large margin. James hailing from Club West like me, but getting a slipstream from Sandberg and Gehan up to the final corner. Sandberg goes a little bit wide, tucking it back in. Tabor takes the regular racing line. Is this going to be a fast one for him? Looks like no such luck, so he does not improve on that 5th place. One thing to watch out for as well that I didn't have to worry about in my race, with it being the official racing being shorter, not needing a pit stop. But here in this series, they do require at least one based on the shortness of fuel. So that pit entry, Steph, I've seen a number of drivers practicing, which is probably a good thing. That is a tricky little entry.
Yeah, and it's very easy to spin out, especially in a spec race of Ford with that off-throttle oversteer that they have. It is going to be interesting to see that dynamic play out once we get to it. You can get away with braking or with not braking midterm, but that means you have to slow down quite a lot entering the entrance of the pit lane. Now, the next challenge itself will be the pit lane, because it's very narrow and very tight. The stalls themselves are very tightly packed. And one problem that one of these drivers, or two of these drivers, will have to face is like Paul Conroy right now, if we can switch to him, because he has the ladder right in front of him and he has to make a sharp left-hand turn to get past that.
You can see, yeah. Now, I think he can go through those cones, though, can he not? Or is...
I am actually not sure. I never tested
I'll
it.
have to watch that, yeah. Well, the qualifying continues on. It looks like pole position has changed hands. Pepe Martinez is now up in the top spot, and it is barely a hundredth of a second between himself and Juracek. It continues to be incredibly tight up on the podium spots. We're not sure if Gaspers is going to be showing up today. I believe he said that he didn't really intend to and is going to take a short break. That will certainly open things up with him being the dominant force thus far. You can see Daniel Sadro following around Bob Kern, who seems to be locking up into one of the multiple hairpins around this lap.
Yeah, and the hardest, you could call it a hairpin nearly. It is a 180-degree corner, is the one that Daniel Sadro is going through right now. And Stevie Ray, where's Stevie Ray actually? Yeah, he is in the pit lane right now. The interesting thing about the last turn is it's not so much about the entry, but much more about the exit of that turn, because the last part of that turn is so much tighter than the entrance that you really have to be good at knowing where you're allowed to accelerate. Otherwise, you're gonna run quite far into the grandstand.
Now, we mentioned there's a Spec 2 championship. Now, that is determined by iRating, and if you want to know who is a Spec 2 driver, look for the number on the car. Anything 200 and above is Spec 2. Nico Schuk is currently our pole sitter in that. And is that his brother or some relation? We saw Tony on screen. But the 287, currently the highest qualifier in that Spec 2 race. Edward Doherty's not too far behind. In fact, he's 2/1000ths of a second behind. So that is a very closely contested pole in itself.
Well, they would both come out of the DH club, and they both have the same liveries, so you wouldn't probably lean too far out of the window to be saying that they are brothers, or at least related.
Yeah, we'll try and see if we can get some confirmation from them, figure out if there is a relation there. Here's a new name that we haven't seen, Loki. So where does he's from the International Club, and I'll have to check to see where exactly, because obviously that is a wide swath that encompasses around the world, sort of a catch-all that iRacing uses for anything that isn't a regular club. Eric Sandberg currently in 25th, coming across to finish his lap with a little bit of damage on the car, but this is one place where aerodynamics really won't matter.
Do you really want to talk about aerodynamics in the Spec Racer Ford?
Well, they count on the draft tracks. I'll say that.
Yeah, you can. You could say that. By the way, Loki out of Moscow. So yeah, if you get a little bit of a bump on the back and your rear wing gets a little bit higher, I don't think it's gonna be too much of a problem down the straight. I don't know how much that affects the balance of the car and makes these hairpin turns easier or harder. So we're gonna have to see about that. But yeah, down the straights, they're surely long enough to keep the close-paced drivers longer together. But we're not gonna see any draft fests or anything like that.
Wouldn't expect so, but what about passing around here? There's 3 different hairpins, or at least sharper hairpins, and you'd expect there'd be plenty of places to pass, but you talked about how short of a lap it is around here. How hard is it going to be trying to get by someone who's ahead of you?
Well, you have a few passing zones actually here. Turn 1, that's one of them. Gary McReevy, he's now going into the second hairpin, or actually first hairpin as it's officially called. Not really a passing zone here because you have that little right hand kink that is while you're braking. And through here you obviously have the right hander, left hander. Left hander, you're gonna stay to the inside, there's nothing really here. Then once again you have that kink right before braking. You can do something into here, but it's not really wise to try to pass someone through this second hairpin, because you have this longest straight of this track right now leading into the last turn, as Miroslav Juracek just put up a new fastest lap by quite a bit, nearly 2/10 actually. And yeah, like McReevy, you're right now already in the last turn, and that's pretty much it. So you only have your 2 passing zones really, maybe if you really want to try something, you can do something into the last jump. But then once again, you're quite exposed to a switcheroo out of it.
Watching Nico shoot currently, who's jumped up to 5th, which extends the gap for that pole for Spec 2 by a large margin. Shoot going to see if he can go any faster this time. By across the line, and it is not meant to be. That 103.2 looking very handy, only 0.3 off the overall pole. That is some serious speed, and it leaves Gabe Nail, the second driver at the Spec 2, way down in 13th with a lot of head scratching to do to see if he can get closer for that Spec 1 win. Martinez comes around and gets ready to complete what will be his final qualifying lap. Steph?
Now, Gabe Nail might be quite a bit down, but actually it's just 2/10 that he himself is down on Nico Schuk.
That's a good point. These short lap times, and I think the number 12 is going to abandon his qualifying, so he doesn't think he can improve. Jerry McAreevy onto the front row. We saw the same thing at the same time there. Clearly a fast driver, and it's put himself in good position to try and take the win here today. Antonio Reese completes his, does not improve. Steve Elson does, and that bumps him up to 5th. That is a big jump.
Adam Bradshaw, next driver to cross the finish line. Right now sitting in 10th. Can he improve? No, he can't. A 3.7 and not good enough.
Checking to see if any other drivers can finish it up. Marshall's going to abandon his lap, so is Hansen. Looks like Hugh Haycox tried to practice his pit entry and made a mess of it, unfortunately. Eric Sandberg also coming in. I think we've had everybody across the line who can at that point. That will set our grid for today. Not the biggest field that we've ever seen, but again, with the tight confines, it is going to be incredibly snug. Let's go through your starting order. Miroslav Juracek put it back on the top in the dying stages of this qualifying, and then he was followed by Jerry McAreevy, putting it into second, denying Pepe Martinez a chance to start on the front row. He'll be in third. Daniel Sadro will be P4, our multi-time runner-up in this series. Steve Elson will be 5th place at the drop of the green. Ian Haycox starts in 6th. Our pole sitter for the Spec 2, Nico Schuk, starts in 7th. James DeBoer will be P8 with Ramon Regalado in 9th, and Adam Bradshaw rounding out your top 10.
Stevie Ray fittingly puts his number 11 into 11th place. Bob Kern will be lining up alongside him in 12th place. Antonio Reese gonna take 13th spot on the grid. Gabe Nail 14th, Edward Doherty rounding out your top 15 drivers of this field right now. Tony Schuk 16th, Jeff Jacobs 17th, Hugh Haycox 18th, Rick Hansen, your 19th driver on the grid, and Loki out of Moscow in 20th.
21st goes to Michael Shaw with Brian Short in the 22nd position. Then it's David Sanchez in 23rd. P24 will go to Tom Gradwell, followed by Jean-Pierre in 25th. On the outside of him, it'll be Mark Gehan in 26th position. Eric Sandberg follows up in 27th. Julio Vercolen managed to get 28th today. Paul Conroy 29th, rounding out the top 30 is Gary Woolbolt. You get the last of the drivers who managed to put times in. Lucas Endeman in 31st. William Marshall in 32nd, and Will Tidwell in 33rd. Ian Malone looks like he will not grid, and Kerry Edwards also is not in the session. So should have a 33-car field out here today.
And Joe, 24 of those are within a second of Miroslav Juracek. Tom Gradwell, the number 299 in 24th, exactly 1 second down on Miroslav Juracek. Juracek with the 1 minute 2 seconds 0.897 versus the 1 minute 0.3897 for Tom Gradwell.
As the clock ticks down, the time to be able to grid runs away, so should see this Porsche pace car taking off any second now, heading around one corner. They've shortened the lap around here for the pace lap, which is a bit astonishing. This place of all places, they could probably do an entire lap. Even still, won't have to wait long. And it'll be Juracek who leads the way. Pace car peels in, Everybody stacks up behind. He waits patiently, looking for that Porsche to actually get into the pit lane. Now he accelerates away. Juracek gets a great jump across the line. Jerry McAreevy under a little bit of threat from Martinez, who is looking to the inside down into the first corner. And we already got a check up with Daniel Sadro getting bumped around and going to the very back of the field. More cars getting together at the end of the field. Otherwise, it looks like most everybody's getting through.
Now I wonder if our leader has actually passed the safety car before it entered the pit lane, because you do get a penalty for that on the start.
I wondered that myself. He went very, very early. We'll watch and find out. He's got just a couple laps to serve it if he did get a black flag. Obviously, this changes the complexion of things. There was Elson who got into the back of Sadro. That puts a little bit of a gap between himself and the top three, which is Juracek, McAreevy, and Martinez. And then he's got a gap behind him as well. Ian Haycox leading the way back in ahead of James Tabor behind him. Completing lap one. A lot of single file up to the first corner, but we do have a pass between Ramon Regalado and Stevie Ray. Ray looking for 9th place. He gets the inside, but that also opens the door for Antonio Reese, who has a look at it, but unfortunately he runs out of track, so he'll have to stay put in 11th. Ooh, Ray going wide though. There goes that spot right back.
Yeah, and he nearly also lost the spot to Antonio Reese, but he didn't get the drive off the corner, so he has to stay behind for one more lap. But Stevie Ray really looking up to that 9th place and says, I wanna.
I said the top three had broken away. Well, not so anymore. Steve Elson has re-caught them. Oh, just behind them, look at the pass attempt from James Tabor on the inside of Ian Haycox into the final corner. Long right-hander with that shallow entry. Oh, I thought it was going to hurt him. Instead, it hurts Haycox. He's out into the gravel, spins off to the side, and now he's trying to wait for an opening as he's finally able to get going. And something happened to Martinez, who was within the podium. He's to the inside of the track at the first hairpin, and I don't think Steve Elson is making many friends because he got into the back of him. Granted, it does look like Pepe started to lose it a little bit.
Yeah, Pepe went straight ahead and then really wanted to cut back onto the apex and yeah, created that awkward situation a little bit by himself, but Steve Elson also to blame there, or mostly to blame there, because yeah, just a target fixation, I would say, there on Steve.
Now we're going to watch what happened to Sadro here out of the start-finish line at the green. Yeah, that looked a little ambitious from Elson on that one. Yeah, I'm willing to give Elson the benefit of the doubt on the second incident, but that first one, I think he'll have to raise his hand. From on board. Gap was never going to stay there. Unfortunately, that put Sadro all the way at the back. He has since climbed to 28th, making his way through slowly. We have a problem with Edward Doherty in the second hairpin, though. He's turned around and also trying to find a gap in the traffic, as that was Paul Conroy spinning in front of him. Interestingly, that almost took out Daniel Sadro, who just snuck by. With Doherty here.
I'm not 100% sure, Doherty, what really happened there.
Reese got him.
Yeah,
contact.
but I'm not sure if that actually was contact or if that was netcode.
We'll have to talk to them a little bit later, see if they can enlighten us. Back up at the front, Juracek has pulled out a gap of about a second over McAreevy. Similarly, from McAreevy back to Elson, who is in third. And then we still have that gap down to Tabor, who holds the fourth spot. He's got a train of cars behind him. That's Bradshaw that you see, Shuk, Regalado, and Ray.
Yeah, and since we're on lap 5 already, we can pretty much confirm that Juracek did not get a penalty on that start for passing the safety car.
Drivers really pushing it into some of these corners. We saw a big puff of smoke, someone locking up in that group. Couldn't quite make out which driver it was. Bradshaw a little bit under threat from Nico Schuk coming into the final corner. Schuk with a shallow entry, hoping for something, but it doesn't appear. They come off to complete another lap with 34 minutes left to go. Once you get behind this group, you get to another very, very long train. That is being led by Bob Kern. Gabe Nail is in there, Hugh Haycox, Tony Schuk, Reese, Sanchez, Jacobson, Shaw, Martinez, Hansen, and Loki are pretty much stuck nose to tail. Ooh, looks like a good run from Hugh Haycox on Gabe Nail. Is Nail going to defend? He takes the inside down into the final hairpin. That's a lockup from Bob Kern ahead of them, causing that smoke. He manages to make the corner, and as they exit out, Nail keeps himself safe with a nice run.
I'm not sure though how much longer Gabe Nail can actually stay ahead of Hugh Haycox. Hugh Haycox really putting down the pressure on Gabe Nail, and seems like Nail has to start defending more and more over Hugh Haycox. And then you have to ask yourself, is it really that good to be defending that hard over one position?
I'm sure he thinks he can hold on to it with how tough it is to pass around here. If anything, if I'm Gabe Nail, I'm worried about, if I'm Hugh Haycox, I'm worried about how hard I try to pass Gabe Nail, because he's got Tony Schuk very close behind. If Tony sees an opening and the pass doesn't work out, he could just as easily lose that spot than he can gain one. Behind them, we got a little bit of action between Michael Shaw and Martinez. Martinez obviously trying to recover from being turned around very early on. He goes the long way around the hairpin and makes it stick. As all this is happening, Macarivi has closed in on the back of Juracek. It's been as close as 0.3 of a second.
Tony Schuk on the outside of Hugh Haycox, trying to make the pass for 11th. Doesn't succeed.
What did I tell you? I thought that Tony was going to be trying something. Oh, and another problem for Martinez in the same corner. This time it was his own doing. Watching from on board.
You pretty much did sum it up already. Own doing, a little bit too fast, a little bit too much brake. They're still applied during the turn, and around she goes.
Certainly a day to forget. Pepe is another one I got to race against, and he is incredibly fast, as evidenced by his pace thus far. It just seems he's struggling a little bit in the race to try and keep it pointed forward. Juracek, in the meantime, dealing with a charging Jerry Macarivi. He set the fastest lap of the race a couple times, and I think he might actually still hold that fastest lap. They come up into the second hairpin. Continues to size him up, just waiting right behind as we now ride on board with Macarivi. I wonder if Jerry needs to start thinking pit stops.
Since Stevie Ray didn't pit in yet, I would say there is nowhere yet for those guys to pit.
Do you see William Marshall coming back out, but that looks to not be a scheduled stop. So that's one driver that's been in and out. Let's go to Gabe Nail, though, because he's in a nice battle for 9th place, and I think he's going to get it over Bob Kern, and a great run up to the final corner.
Yeah, very interestingly, Hugh Haycox made his mistake to release the pressure off Gabe Nail, and Gabe Nail immediately went onto the offense. against Bob Kern and overtook him just now.
Almost went 3 wide for
Oh, Rick Hansen.
17th. Rick Hansen's trying to save it. Oh, but he gets turned back straight. That's going to be severe damage for Ian Haycox with a hard hit.
The ever so helpful Ian Haycox turns him around very nicely, but gets a lot of damage himself. Thankfully, to the side of the car.
Maybe they were going to manage to get by him. Well, and Daniel Sadro has caught Pepe Martinez. Two drivers heading opposite directions. Martinez losing it a little bit coming out of the corner. That car seems to be struggling. Wonder if he's overheated the tires slightly. Are we going to get a 3 wide situation? Because Sadro to the inside of Loki now with Martinez following as Ian Haycox looks like he has to get that damage repaired. He ducks into the pits. That's going to give multiple positions in just a couple corners to Daniel Sadro, who's now up to 17th.
Who is that in the back there?
That was Gihan. Hard into the wall. As we see the action continuing for Sadro. There was a challenge from Loki to get the spot back, and he looks down to the inside of the hairpin yet again. Nothing doing. Martinez trying to follow through, but stuck behind Loki as he gets chopped off, almost forced off track into the right-hander. Oof, you can see how much stronger Martinez is on the brakes, though.
Yeah, Martinez most definitely very strong out of this second hairpin, but with his damage not really able to get much speed out of that. But he is on the inside now. Let's see if he can hold that, but look at that speed Loki has on the outside.
Ooh, nearly touches him. Had to get out of the gas a little bit there. He's going to have another go at it down in the first turn, but he's going to have to go the long way around. Once again, getting very close to making contact. Oh. Having a horrible time. Maybe Martinez is having fun. I don't know as he slides it through the second hairpin. And he spins it off course. That might be day over. He takes a tow. And it looks like he has exited the sim. So I think Martinez is done for the day.
That wasn't only just a tow. That was a rage quit. He said, I'm done with this. I'm out. Thank you. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just a little bit of grass off the exit. Meanwhile, we have Steve Ray and Steve Elson in.
So the pit window is officially open with Stevie Ray pitting.
I think it would have been open a lot longer, a lot long ago, since we're just about to halfway. Regardless, you're right. This is the first of our drivers up front that we've seen come in and out. Elson is our highest pitter thus far. He comes in 17th, but he's in a pack of cars.
Yeah, that's not gonna be very good for the pace of him.
You can see our leader trying to get a little bit of a tow off of the back of William Marshall, who lets both he and McAreevy by. Neither of them electing to come into the pits quite yet.
Now,
Is that a car off track there?
that was Will Tidwell. Oh, he had a spin out of the last turn, was actually way too fast, hit the barrier, and was trying to get turnaround. He wasn't standing there, but he was very slow because he was recovering from his spin.
Yeah, he was kind of lucky the way he had that glancing blow along the barriers to get it going once again.
Oh, and something happened to Tony Schuch. It's already about a few laps ago, actually. He's now one lap down, but in lap 12, through the last turn, he actually spun himself around and hit the Armco barrier on the inside and touched it in such a weird angle that he actually got flipped on his roof.
For being such a short track, it's surprisingly how tricky it is, especially for a lot of these drivers. We've switched the battle between Regalado and Bradshaw. This is to settle fourth. He's coming up the front stretch, but Regalado doesn't quite seem close enough to attack, even though he kind of wants to. He's going to go wide on the entry, tries to square it off, and still nothing doing, unfortunately, for the 88.
Yuhei Cox and Antonio Rees right now side by side through turn 8, and Antonio Rees actually able to retain his position around the outside.
There you see Hugh in the purple and white machine. The blue and gray is Hugh Haycox. So he follows him up to the last chicane, or last hairpin here.
Kinda strange to not see Yuhei Cox in a pink car.
I know, right?
Oh, and Ramon Regalado trying to do it on the inside of the last turn for that P4 of Adam Bradshaw, and is actually able to do it. But here comes the momentum of Adam Bradshaw now through the last turn, out of the last turn, over the start-finish line. That one went to Ramon Regalado, getting counted as position 4 over the line. But the momentum still there for Adam Bradshaw once again out of the last turn. Finally, Ramon Regalado able to make it happen, or no, not once again. Adam Bradshaw very good out of the turns, and now he has the inside, and that's the position gone. Or is it? Wow.
Look at the switchback. What a move by Regalado. Saw that one coming, set himself up perfectly, and now he is fully ahead. Bradshaw's not done with trouble yet. Here comes Nico Schuck behind him. Nico starts to back out by the time they hit the brakes. So your new order: Regalado 4th, Bradshaw 5th, Schuck 6th.
Yeah, and Schuck already about 5 seconds ahead of Gabe Neal, 2nd place in the Spec 2 class. So very great performance so far by Nico Schuck.
Taking a little bit of a look into the final corner as well. Obviously eager to make something happen. We are now pretty much exactly halfway through this race and still waiting on a number of drivers to come in and stop. Elson is our highest pitter currently. He sits in 12th position. We should see him cycle back up to the top 10. He's dealing with Doherty behind, who has not pitted yet. Oh, Nail! Gabe Nail just lost another spot. Or was Antonio Rees already ahead of him?
No. Nail did get overtaken by Antonio Rees. Where did that happen? That actually happened through the infield hairpin.
Wow, that's brave stuff. Not easy to execute passes there.
Gabe Neal actually ran wide there. He did outbrake himself, ran extremely wide, and Antonio Rees said thank you very much as he now drives into pit lane.
All right, so Antonio looking for his stall. Thankfully not behind the ladder. As he brings it in. We haven't been watching a whole lot of it, but I can just update you that McAreevy has been hanging on to the back of our leader Juracek, but not attacking yet. He's within about consistently half a second of the number 84.
Speaking about being half a second, that's exactly how much you need to cover 3 cars in that 4th place battle. That is Ramon Regalado, Adam Bradshaw, and Nico Schuck fighting it out right now on the backstretch for that 4th place.
See if Nico elects to come in and pit, see if he can jump them in the stops. He ducks to the inside, but that is not a pit entry. He stays out on track. All 3 of them do. Continuing on into lap 19 now. These 3 have been glued together for quite a while in this race. Credit to them, though. They haven't been fighting most of the time, so they should be running a decent pace. There's another lockup down into the infield hairpin for Regalado. Looking like a snake, just working their way through these various curves on this tiny little track. And now on to the longest straight on the track.
One of the shortest or longest straights you can have on this surface.
It really is. Shuk really likes that early entry into the final turn.
Yeah, I can see how that makes him faster. He's braking a little bit earlier, really shoots for that first apex and then really rolls through the turn. He actually has a lot more mid-turn speed than Adam Bradshaw. That always gets him very close, but he never really can get a drive off the turn to challenge Bradshaw for that 5th place.
Can give you a little bit of an update that Doherty also has pitted. So no longer hassling those who have in the mid-pack. As we watch McAreevy follow up towards the final turn. Both he and Juracek not electing to come in. Tabor also staying out. We still have 28 cars out running of our 33 starters. Interestingly, we haven't seen a whole lot of traffic for Juracek and McAreevy. Oh, looks like Hugh Haycox has ducked off. He's taken his pit stop. He's already been overtaken by Elson, so Elson will remain our highest pitter. Stevie Ray goes by. Haycox now pulling out. I think he should be ahead of Antonio Reese, it looks like. Oh, and something's happened to Loki. Turned around at the first hairpin.
That was all his own doing there. Little bit too fast into the turn and then just spin.
That was Rick Hansen, yeah, that we saw go by, and Stevie Ray along with him. That was for position. Stevie Ray will actually get by after Hansen had to slow up. Watch the Plains driver's perspective as he sees this car come across the track. Great avoidance, but it doesn't keep Ray from getting by. Granted, Ray has pitted, and the number 36 has not yet.
Speaking about pitting, Gabe Nail doing exactly that. From 9th place, he elected to pit in.
He's already done with his stop. Now, where is Haycox? Hugh coming up the front stretch, and he's going to be out in front of him.
Just about, though. So that means that...
He might have a position. Oh, no, this is not for position. Tony is a lap down. That's right.
That's the wrong Shuk. Oh, Shuk actually gets a touch by Nail, saves that one. Wow.
A little bit of Shuk and jive, and he catches the car. So Tony continuing on, just trying to salvage something out of this race. Man, that car does not look good right now.
He hit the bump on the grass that is there on the inside of that 7th turn, and he had to fight his car all the way across the track to save that one.
Leo Reese almost got into the back of Nail as well, into that last hairpin.
Oh, look at that on screen. Ramon Regalado once again behind Adam Bradshaw, so he missed the pass for 4th position.
Yeah, that happened in the final turn on the last lap.
Oh!
As Regalado with a big slide down into the final hairpin. Nico Shuk has to take avoidance maneuvers, and this is a boon to Adam Bradshaw, who is well clear of both.
Great sportsmanship there by Nico Shuk. He immediately realized that was his own mistake and waited on the outside for Ramon Regalado to catch his car again and be on the drive.
To be fair to Nico, from the onboard, it looked like it was Netco. So he was, at least from his perspective, it seemed to be giving space, and it just was not enough. Ramon instead comes in and pits to avoid all the mess that's happening out on track. Steve Elson, who was one of our earliest pitters, still clearly in a good position as he continues to pass drivers who have pitted. Still not seeing our two leaders in. Surprised at McAreevy hanging exactly where he is. I'd be curious, Steph, to know whether he's pushing hard to stay here or if he's just biding his time.
I think Cherry did realize that he is faster but can't make it happen. Or probably knows that he can't run away from Juracek. So all he's doing right now is saving fuel as much as he can to make it happen through the pit stop.
Do you think you could save a whole lot of fuel here?
Oh, most definitely, especially if you know how to roll in and through turns. I think you can save in this car quite a lot of fuel.
Meanwhile, Rick Hansen is off the course. This is... Oh, and he had someone with him.
A damaged car.
Oh, it was Will Tidwell who was inside, who was trying to let him by, and Will lost it and swung right into the 36.
My goodness. One could argue that Will Tidwell was paid to take out Rick Hansen there.
No, he touched the grass to the inside, so I know it looked weird from that angle, but he lost the car.
Yeah, he went.
Poor Will.
I think he lost his footing a little bit there, Will Tidwell, and ran right over that curb, sending his front a little bit into the air and the rear, which made him lose exactly that. And yeah, right into poor Rick Hansen he went.
Nico Schuch into the pits. Gary Wobold is also pitted. Rick Hansen in and out since. Eric Sandberg also finishing his stop.
Oh, and this might get interesting now. I don't know how close Juracek and McAreevy will be there on the pit entrance, but Will Tidwell has now pitted in, and both of them elect to stay out. But if one of them would have driven into pit lane, they might have lost quite a bit of time with Will Tidwell ahead.
He's awful slow on his way in, but thankfully he didn't hold anybody up. He's just going to get his spare car, or if he still has a spare car, and get back out there and get going. Right on board with second place McAreevy, and watching from our helicopter, 67 chasing the 84. We were curious what the race would look like without David Gaspers here, and it looks like Juracek and McAreevy stepping up to the plate here in the first round.
I'm gonna start that game, but the question is, what would have been if Sadra wouldn't have spun out in turn one? And there's actually two cars standing on the outside of the last turn.
Stevie Ray, Mark Gehan, and Eric Sandberg all got involved in an incident on the final corner. I believe Stevie Ray was the only one on the lead lap of those three. He was just the wrong place, the wrong time.
Yeah, Eric Sandberg spun on his own. Mark Gehan, no way to avoid that. And then Stevie Ray, same for him, no way to avoid that.
I know we're on replay, but we have a battle for the lead happening right now. We're watching from Stevie Ray's perspective. And it looks like that battle did not come to anything. But we actually had a side-by-side for a moment between McAreevy and Juracek.
And Adam Bradshaw is in pit lane, stopping from 4th place now. Where is Steve Elson? Already way past him.
Elson's been making really good. Has he ever been in traffic this whole time since his pit stop? That's always the big worry if you stop early, and the 56 has been mostly clear air, it seems.
He is right now, as the leaders are pitting in, are both pitting in. Yes, both of them are pitting in. Very interesting by McAreevy.
Are they pitted in? Sorry, I couldn't resist. Miroslav Juracek leads Jerry McAreevy down to the very front of the pit lane. Tabor is going to follow them. Sadro stays out. This is interesting.
Oh, McReevy ever so slightly missed his braking spot for his stall. Probably only lost a tenth, if even that. But also a longer stop for him. Very interesting. Oh, Juracek spun!
Juracek catches it. His shorter pit stop might have saved him. McReevy, though, has the speed off the corner. Oh, and he gets chopped off. Ooh, that he might have something to say about that one. Granted, Juracek was drifting over for a while. Let's watch. Just right out of the first corner. Maybe pushes it too hard. Or no, the curb. He bounced off the curb, it looks like. Yeah, that's a bit of a Pruitt fade, I'd say, from Miroslav. So it didn't really cut across in an erratic manner to cut off McReevy. Even still, that was awful close. Sadro is in, by the way.
Oh, Juracek with a bad mistake now through the last turn. Able to keep up his pace, though. But he lost a little bit of ground to McReevy, who tries very hard into the first turn.
So now that all of the top cars have pitted, this means Steve Elson cycles through to third place, which is roughly where he was before the stops.
And after everything, Daniel Sadro back up to 5th place.
Wow. What a recovery for the 51. He is not too far behind James DeBoer as well, so there is a chance that he could get himself on to or into the top 4.
Oh, we have to go, though, to the battle for first. McReevy, really good run out of the second hairpin. But Miroslav Juracek still able to retain his pace, but he really takes a wider line through the last turn than McReevy.
Following up the front stretch, he stays within touch. At what point does the 67 start to get aggressive? Only got 7 minutes left on the clock. They do have traffic coming up. Julio Verkoelen is going to be the first one. Then they've got quite a gap up to Gehan, who will be next. There's still 28 cars out on track for the moment.
Oh, that's a bad line for McReevy. Loses a little bit of place now, but able to retain his speed.
And what happened to Nail here? He's off course, coming back on in a lot of traffic. Oh, you know, this involved both Antonio Reese and Hugh Haycox. It was just wrong place, wrong time. Reese goes wide, and then Haycox actually comes out the best of them. Poor Gabe Nail has to eventually do a 3-point turn and get himself on the right path.
That was bad reading of Hugh Haycox, not realizing he could have went left instead of going right, boxing in Gabe Nail there, and yeah.
And Daniel Sadro just took the spot away from James DeBoer. That bumps him back up to 4th, considering he probably lost a good, let's see, I'd say 30 seconds of time, maybe 20 seconds of time to the leader, having to sit and let the field go by. He is now only 12 seconds back from the top 2 and into 4th place. Oh, and Nico Schuch has lost out to Regalado just now. Car understeered on the exit. And with that, Ramon says, thank you very much. Back up to 7th for me. Five minutes left to go now. Haven't seen anything from McReevy and Juracek lately. Starting to suspect that if Jerry had anything, he would have done it by now.
Well, he had his mistakes, so he was a little bit far away, which he just closed in now through the last 2 hairpins. now coming into the third hairpin, which is actually called the second hairpin because the first corner is named the first corner, even though it is calculated as 2 corners. It's a little bit. We were in Japan, so let's just let it slide there. But yeah, Juricek, he is starting to struggle a little bit with the hairpins, as it seems like, where McGreevy really can close in the gap.
Only a few more laps to go. McAreevy, the green and white car that you see second in line as he closes in behind Miroslav Juricek, the black, teal, and orange machine, the number 84, up in first currently. Juricek has been doing a phenomenal job fending off McAreevy. A few mistakes here and there, and has not given it up quite yet. Still very little traffic in front of them, if they'll even manage to catch it at all. Loki is the next one up the road. We have a problem with Ed Doherty. He's losing multiple positions, and he's got a spin in front of him. That is nail into the wall. It all happened the very first corner. Doherty spins himself at first, and then tries to get it back going. Nail taking evasive maneuvers, clips the grass and finds himself in the wall.
Yeah, not the best rejoin by Doherty, but I think Gabe Nail is more to blame there because he was quite far to the inside. He tried to go to the right of Doherty, not realizing that Doherty is going to try to stick to the right side.
Oh, and now Hugh Haycox in the final corner was off course, and another driver making a mistake on his own. This time, thankfully for Hugh, he did not hit anything. It's got to be a scary spin heading backwards so fast off of that corner.
Something happened to Antonio Rees as he just disconnected off the server.
And Loki did as well. Well, Loki didn't Oh, you know what? Loki had almost a carbon copy of Hugh. The main difference being that he actually got the wall. Unfortunately, so damaged he had to tow.
And Antonio Rees, the thing with him was, I think he might have been already out of his T car and had no more spare cars, and thus decided to end this race.
We're right on board with McAreevy. They're going to get the white flag this time by.
Pretty sure they still have 2 to go because this lap is only 1 minute and 4. No.
2 laps to go this time by. Brain was thinking 2 to go. Mouth said white flag. Out of the final corner. Look at the wide entry that McAreevy tries to set up to get himself the launch.
Oh.
I don't know if it's enough, though.
Juricek went rather wide there on the exit of the final turn, but no harm and no foul. McAreevy back up to the back of Juricek.
Not missing much through the rest of the top of the field. This is really our closest battle, interestingly enough. How aggressive is Jerry willing to be? The UKNI driver has been absolutely hounding Juricek pretty much the entire race. He dropped back early on, closed in behind him. Now he's to the inside. Oof. I think Miroslav left the door open a little bit for him there.
Jerry is trying it. That is right now his agenda. Win it or not win it, but don't take that second place for granted.
Out of the final turn. Now the white flag waves for these two. He is keeping his foot in the gas. McAreevy trying everything to try and get the car close enough to attempt to pass. Doesn't happen for the first turn. Now they head down towards the next hairpin. Looks a little bit too far back to me through here, but he starts to close every single time. A puff of smoke from Juracek as he too pushes the car to the limits to try and hold him back. 90-degree right-hander. Not many opportunities there. Both of them swinging through. McAreevy losing out yet again. His opportunities fading. He is going to have one crazy good run out of this last corner to have a chance into the final turn. He does stay with him. This is a pretty decent run, and it looks like Miroslav knows it. He immediately covers off the inside. Don't think this is going to be enough. All he has to do is stay solid through this final corner. McAreevy looking for the over-under just in case, taking it wide into it, powering through it, but it is not enough as Miroslav Juracek takes the win here in round one for the Weekend Warriors. Elson finishing in third, ahead of the driver that he tipped around in the very first corner, Daniel Sadro, who recovers to a fourth place. As the others come across the line, Tabor gets a top 5, Bradshaw with a 6. And what's going on in the final corner? There's Gary Wolbolt, it looks like. And one of the Shooks, that's Tony Shook. That was for position. Granted a lap down. No surprises to see something ambitious on the final lap to try and get one more spot.
I have to go to the opposite there. I would actually say Gary Walbot did close the door there on Tony Shook. There was not enough room for Tony, who was well alongside Gary Walbot there. Either way, no harm and no foul at the very end.
Everybody now across the line as we watch our winner coast his car back to the pits to celebrate. We're going to go to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Tsukuba. We just watched round one of the Weekend Warriors presented by Sim Stickers. And in the end, the first round was won by Miroslav Juracek. He just edged out Jerry McAreevy by 0.3 of a second at the line. And they, of course, outpaced Steve Elson, even with his early pit stop. Certainly allowed him to continue on in his third place with a fifth place start, but he might have a few drivers to talk to with multiple contacts. Daniel Sadro was one of those who recovered to a fourth place. James Tabor was behind them in P5. Then you've got Adam Bradshaw in 6 and Ramon Regalado in P7. Nico Shook took the win in the Spec 2, the number 287, the first of that lower class to manage to come across the line. He was 8th overall. Ian Haycox was 9th, and Jeff Jacobson was 10th.
11th place went to Michael Shaw, starting from 21st overall, so 10 positions gained for him. Stevie Ray, the 11th, started in 11th and only finished in 12th place, so he lost one position there from his starting grid. Hugh Haycox finishes in 13th after mid-race trouble hit him very hard. Same thing for Gabe Neal, started in 14th and finished in 14th. So you would say a very uneventful race. You wouldn't be much wronger because Gabe Neal had quite the troublesome race here today. Bob Kern, 12th was his starting position, finishes in 15th. Garrido Sanchez from 2030 went up to 16th, 51 seconds behind our leaders, also the last car on the lead lap. Edward Doherty 17th, Tom Gradwell 18th, 19th went to Giulio Forcelin, who started in 28th overall. Rick Hansen, your last car in the top 20, starting from 19th.
Then you get to Gary Wobold and Tony Schuch, who came together in the final corner, squabbling over 21st. Wobold got 21st, Schuch 22nd. Eric Sandberg was 23rd with Mark Geehan in the 24th spot. Will Tidwell, unfortunately, looks like he had a lot of dramas today, including some with drivers that were not on the same lap as him. He wound up 25th, 2 laps down. Lucas Endeman was 26th, and Loki with his late race incident DNF'd in 27th. Antonio Reese also a DNF in 28th. Paul Conroy was P29, and Pepe Martinez didn't make it through much of the race. He winds up 30th. William Marshall was 31st. Brian Short was 32nd, and Jean Pereira was 33rd. Malone and Edwards did not start today. Now, we have our second place driver ready to talk to us. Jerry McAreevy joins us. Jerry, it looked like you were very close on pace to Miroslav, but just not able to do anything. But you had one moment where you had a hope for a pass just after the pit stops. Talk to us about what happened coming out of the first corner.
Hi, guys. Oops.
Everything okay?
Yeah, sorry, my crew chief was going off there. No, I think Miroslav made a wee mistake, and to be honest, so did I. I kind of got a wee bit alongside him. I don't even think he knew I was there. So I had a few half chances. It was a good race, but I think overall he was a wee bit quicker.
You certainly gave him something to think about at the end. It looked like you were trying to size him up for a pass into that first turn. Your line was very, very different in the final corner. Was that intentional?
Probably just lack of practice on my part.
Well, then I was giving it more meaning than there seemed to be there. Tsukuba, obviously an incredibly short track with not many places to try and pass or draft anybody. But much of the season is different from what we saw last time around with some very big tracks. How do you think about this schedule coming up? Do you think more wins, or a win rather, is on the cards this season for you?
Well, I certainly hope so. I'm really looking forward to this season. It looks like a really good lineup. So, yeah, we'll see. Obviously, work permitting for the Weekend Warriors, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we hope we get to see more of you. Last season, we ran the moto layout of this course. Did you like this one better without that extra chicane?
Yeah, I prefer the 2000 layout.
Good stuff. Well, I don't blame you on that one. Certainly has a good flow to it. Congratulations on a podium today, and hopefully we'll get to see you more.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
That was Jerry McAreevy second today. Steph is caught up with Gabe Nail.
Yeah, a very unlucky Gabe Nail involved in a few incidents here today. Gabe, how would you sum up your race then?
At first, I was actually like, I mean, from practice on into quali, I was really, really just not confident. I was like, man, this is going to be a terrible race. I'm not going to do very well. But I saw that after quali, I had ended up putting up a decent quali lap in, and for at least for the class, I was qualifying pretty decently. And at the beginning of the race, Ed ended up getting taken out, and I was like, "Oh man, that's sucks for Ed, but that's a free place for me in the class." And I was battling it out with Hugh, just kind of like I wasn't really defending or anything like actively on track, but I was kind of watching in my relative, and he ended up getting an undercut on me, and I was like, "Dang, I didn't think he would get it because I tried to pit the next lap right after." And then I was kind of betting on Antonio to try to make a little bit of trouble for Hugh, so I could end up getting past Hugh as well while Antonio was overtaking him. But I guess Antonio must have he messed up something really bad, and he went off track, and everything just kind of unfolded from there. And it was just a little bit of irritation going for the last 10 laps. I was just like, man, that really sucks. But I mean, Ed ended up running out of fuel, so it was a bit of a lucky break because I got third in class, so I was happy about that. But it was definitely a crazy race, to say the least.
We didn't even catch that with Edward running out of fuel. So, yeah, third place still. After all the troubles you've went through this race, a very good result, I would say.
Yeah.
Now, next week we have Road Atlanta, the short version of that circuit. How are you looking forward to that one?
Oh gosh, that's gonna be a little bit crazy. I mean, I think the short version might be a little bit better than the long version, because I remember doing the long version last time, and it ended up one of the scariest things I've ever done in a spec racer, which is 3 wide into the chicane, like the ending chicane. I was like, oh dear. It's probably one of the scariest things, but I think it's gonna be fun. Road Atlanta is pretty fun in this car, so looking forward to it.
And we're looking forward to seeing you once again on the track here in the Spec Racer Weekend Wars. And once again, congrats on your third place, Gabe.
Thank you.
That was Gabe Nail, 14th overall, but third place in the Spec 2 Championship show.
Yeah, we can't play down that race in the race, if you will, because it's incredibly important to the Spec 2 drivers. We'll try our best to cover it when we can. But a big thank you goes out to our sponsor, especially for allowing us the chance to cover this series. The Sim Stickers, of course, can be reached at simstickers.co.uk. Make sure and reach out to them, check out their wares, and go grab some stuff if you're a sim racer, because they could be a huge help to your setup. Also, a thank you goes out to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Subscribe. All you got to do that is click on the big red subscribe button on their YouTube page. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Stefan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, the next race that we're heading to is Road Atlanta, but you can see it is the short version, so it's a little bit more compact. It's a little bit more like what we had today. That'll be Sunday, September 22nd at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.